Hey guys, it's Shashank back again with another video. Today we'll be going over my software and hardware setup for any data analytics work that I do. So any data analytics, data science work I do, both for my company and for my independent consulting work, this is the setup that I use. This video was requested quite a bit on my other videos. Basically, how do you set up VS Code? How do you set up all your software and everything to work the way you want to? And I'll be going over that today. Note that this isn't a guide for all data analysts, but I think this will cover a decent chunk of the work that most data analysts end up doing. So to give you guys an overview, there are a couple of tools that I end up using. I mostly code in Python, but I'm also learning R, and I want to become fluent in R as well because R is another incredibly popular analytics language. And I think that any data analyst worth their salt should be fluent in both R and Python at some point in time. So I use Python, R, of course, SQL, Excel, Tableau, and I'll be going over my setups for all of those. So let's get started with Python. So before you download your code editor, your IDE, whatever it is, usually you want to download Python first. So there are two ways you can do this. You can either download Python directly from Python's website, or you can download the Anaconda or Miniconda distribution. So we're going to go do it that way. What is Anaconda or Miniconda? Basically, let's go to the website. Anaconda is it is a Python distribution specifically made for people who work in data analytics and data science, and it is why because it's specially made for people like us, it's why I prefer to use this rather than the Python that comes on, I think, python.org, on the python.org website. Anaconda usually will have packages that are not updated as fast as they are on Python's website or on pip, which is the Python package manager, the default one. But Anaconda is usually better at managing the dependencies between different packages. So what happens is, the way Python works is that it's a tremendous coding language, but what makes it really amazing is the fact that, like, for any feature or function you want, someone has a library for it. For example, for data frames, basically for tabular data, that function doesn't come naturally inside Python. It's not built in. But someone created the pandas library, which is like the premier library for data, for tabular data management, and it is amazing. It does basically everything you need it to do, and it's a single package. Versus, like, for example, in R, you have to download tidyverse, which has a couple of packages to help you with managing all the functions in R for data frames specifically. So when you have pandas, you might have to download because you have to download all these packages independently. It becomes really easy for there to be package conflicts. Basically, like, one version of one package doesn't work well with another version of another package. And this is the kind of stuff that Anaconda helps you manage really well. And this is one of the reasons I prefer to use it. So back when I was at my last company, I had this nice Lenovo laptop, and I downloaded the Anaconda, the regular version of it, which is like a GUI that helps you manage your packages very easily on a GUI. And for some reason, it would take about 20 minutes to launch every single time I needed to launch it, which was really weird. The computer I was using, like, it wasn't, a beast, but it was a nice laptop. There was nothing really wrong with it. And because of that, I actually started using something called Miniconda. So Miniconda is the exact same thing as Anaconda, except instead of being a GUI, it's a command line interface. And I know, especially if you were like me when you started, command line interfaces can be very, very intimidating. But they're actually quite simple. And so that's what I'm going to show you guys how to use today. I don't use Anaconda, the GUI interface. I only use Miniconda. So you should just be able to type in Miniconda in Google, and you'll get this over here. Go ahead and download the version for your computer. If you're using a Mac, I prefer to download the PKG version. This just means you double click it like a normal package file, and it'll install Miniconda for you very easily. Windows, you're going to have to figure out if you're either 64-bit or 32-bit. Luckily, if you're Mac, you have a 64-bit system. And download the appropriate version for your computer. Once you do that, and once you install it, I should actually pull this up for you guys. If you're installing on Windows, make sure you don't, or even on Mac, make sure you don't change the path environment variable. So path is basically how your computer command line will recognize when you type in, for example, Python, like, where is the actual executable for that file. So just don't change that for now. What you'll actually do on Windows is you'll just use something called Anaconda prompt. So in Mac, we just pull up the regular terminal. So I hit Command Space just now and just open up the terminal like normal. And then I use Command Plus to enlarge it because it always starts in this tiny little screen. And on Windows, you'll open up Anaconda prompt. Hit the Windows key and type in Anaconda, and Anaconda prompt should come up. So now you have your, you'll see base over here, and then your computer name and a bunch of information about your computer. But you'll see base over here. Now, what you want to do is you'll want to type in conda help. And when you do that, you should get this long list of different options and stuff inside Anaconda. And it's basically, this is just all the stuff you can do inside it. We're now going to be setting up our Python environment. Now, remember earlier how I said that when you do different packages, when you install different packages, you can have different conflicts. So because of that, you want to use a package manager, which Anaconda comes bundled with one. Virtual env is another really popular one that's used by people who use like regular Python distributions. But I prefer to just use the Conda package manager. And you'll have different what you call environments. And basically what an environment is, it's kind of a box where you have a bunch of packages that you use for a specific project. So for example, I have one environment called web scraping. And this is like the environment I use for any web scraping jobs I need to do, usually as part of my independent consulting work. I've never had to actually web scrape for my full-time job. And I have another one called TensorFlow, which because TensorFlow has all these conflicting, TensorFlow can conflict with a lot of packages out there. I have a separate environment just with TensorFlow inside it. For those of you that don't know, TensorFlow is Google's neural network library, basically. And I have one called Minimal Data Science, or Minimal DS, which is the one I'm going to show you guys how to make right now. And that basically just has the packages I use for basically every single day for my data science work or my analytics work. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to type in conda update conda. And then it'll update your Anaconda environment. You want to make sure everything's updated as expected. I think mine should be updated. This can take a little while. Okay, so you'll see over here that mine is not updated. So it'll say proceed YN. So hit Y and then hit enter. And then yours will definitely look different if you're doing a brand new install. Awesome, awesome, looks good. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create an environment. And again, all we're doing over here is we're doing the same stuff we would do in the Anaconda GUI, which if you feel much more comfortable in a GUI, feel free to download that and use that. I may have just had a bad experience myself with it. So type in, next we want to create environment. So we're going to type in conda create -- name and minimal DS. Now I already have an environment called minimal DS or minimal data science. So we'll call this minimal DS2. Yes. So what we did there is we typed in conda, which, you know, it tells my MacBook, or in your case maybe a Windows laptop, hey, go to the conda application, which is, you know, mini conda. Go to the conda application. Okay, now execute the command create, which means create an environment. Oh, here's an option I want to attach to that create command. That's what this double dash means. Basically, here's an option as part of the create command, minimal DS2. So we've now created the environment. But what we have to do is we have to actually activate the environment now. So if you'll see over here, it says base. Base means we're inside the base environment. This is the environment that you are, that is like the default environment with your system. And what a lot of people do, and what I used to do when I first started learning how to code in Python, is I would just dump all my packages into my base environment. If you're just learning and you don't want to go through all this environment stuff, then that's fine. Just dump all your packages in base. But I think that setting up an environment will help you keep your system clean and it'll prevent you from having a bunch of conflicting packages and a lot of issues later on. So I have a very clean computer right now, and I can tell you exactly what every environment I have does. And it helps me keep all my workflows organized and makes sure that my packages are updated as they need to be. Okay, so now we've created the minimal DS2 environment. Let us go and activate it. So what we type in is we type in conda activate minimal _ DS2. And you'll see here, it went from base, now it says minimal DS2. Well, what if you have a couple of environments and you want to see what environments you have? Well, you can always type in conda list env. Sorry, the other way around. Conda env list. And you'll see it lists all of my Anaconda environments. I use Streamlit. Let me know if you guys want to see a Streamlit tutorial. It's actually a really cool application for building front end web apps for your data science workflow. So I'm building something for my company right now, and it's a tremendous app. I've used Dash and I've used Streamlit, and I prefer Streamlit, honestly. Okay, so now we've activated minimal DS. So now we need to add channels. So what is a channel? A channel is basically kind of like a website where you can download applications. So this is telling your Anaconda distribution, okay, go look for the packages I want you to download in here, here, and here. There's a default channel that comes with Anaconda. There are 2 more that we want to add. So I'm just going to copy and paste these commands I already have written out. Or, you know what, let me just type it out for you guys. Conda config, and remember, you have to do this after you're already in the environment that you want to configure for. So conda config, add channels, conda forge. All right, so it looks like that worked. And then what I hit is I just hit the up arrow key, which brings the previous command and puts it on your current line. So see, I can go through all the previous commands. So that's a really useful tip in command line. And then you want to do conda config set channel priority strict. And honestly, I'm comfortable with the command line, but I don't use it every single day. So I have the commands typed up on a note sheet that I'll be sure to share with you guys at the end of the video. And basically what this is saying is this is telling it how to set the priority of the channels we have, because we have multiple channels now. So what we did here, conda, we're activating Miniconda. Config, okay, so we're telling Miniconda to go configure something. And add channels. This is the the optional options we want to mess around with. Conda forge. So conda forge is another channel we want to add. Again, I think you can just go ahead and copy the instructions on the note page that I'll have in the description of the video for you guys, and it'll make sense as you play around with it. If you're anything like me and you have and you came from a place of literally zero development experience, I had zero formal training in anything I do today, then this can seem very intimidating, but just keep at it. Command line is a very important thing for any data analyst to know, because even if you use the GUI version of Anaconda, you're going to have to use command line for any cloud services you're going to be messing around with, or and it's also just a lot lighter than a lot of GUIs, so it's easier to use a lot of the time. But you'll see, even for me, I switch between GUIs and cloud interfaces, as you guys will see in a bit. Okay, cool. So now you want to install packages. So in Anaconda, it's very easy. You just type in conda install, and then you list your packages over here. So I have a list of packages that I need installed for my minimal data science environment. Oh, whoops. Okay, no, that didn't work out as expected. I didn't copy it properly. Okay. So I hit, on my Mac, I hit Control, not Command, Control C. I'm not sure what it is on Windows, but basically that'll just end whatever command you're on right now. Okay, so what we're doing here, conda install, so the application Miniconda, install, and the packages I wanted to install are pandas, scikit-learn, matplotlib, notebook, stats models, openpyxl, and xlrd. So pandas stands for panel data, and it's basically your tabular data management system inside Miniconda, or inside Python. This is by far the most useful Python library for any data scientist, analyst, whatever. Scikit-learn is the standard machine learning library inside Python. So as a data analyst, I'm not building models every single day, and I don't use this every single day, but it's good to have because I do use it every once in a while, and it reminds me to keep pushing forward and learning more and more of these skills. That way I can become a data scientist one day. Matplotlib is just a graphing library. It's a standard graphing library in Python. I generally do all my graphs in Tableau, but I have this for just quick graphs I may need to build here and there. Notebook, it installs Jupyter notebooks inside our computer. That way we can run Jupyter notebooks, and I'll show you what those are in a bit. Stats models, that basically just has a bunch of statistical models that you might be using. OpenPyXL and XLRD are two different libraries to manage Excel files, so they're quite important. So I would definitely recommend installing those. So you hit enter. take a second. All right, Y, enter. And you'll see what happens is because there are so many dependencies, it'll download like a bunch of other packages too. Like for example, like NumPy. You may be wondering why I didn't download NumPy, the premier Python math or scientific computing library. Well, it's because if you download Pandas, NumPy comes with it. And that's the great thing about these package managers. They'll do all this stuff for you. And you'll see we're downloading Python version 3.9.2. Which this is something that you should watch out for in your company. So, for example, in my company, when I deploy code to our code base, I need to be using Python 3.7 because that's just what we're on right now. Most times I don't have an issue using Python 3.9, but it's better practice to use the version of Python that is used by your company. And your engineering teams will usually be the ones to let you know about that. Or, you know, if you don't have them, then maybe you can just say, okay, we're going to use Python 3.9. All right. Awesome. So it looks like it worked just as expected. So now, the next thing I always do is I download a text editor or a code editor. And the one I prefer to use is VSCode. So VSCode is an open source code editor built by Microsoft, or I think it's so I don't think VSCode itself is open source, but it's built on an open source base. Either way, it's a great code editor and it's free. And I use it and I've loved it ever since I've used it. It's very configurable. It works on every operating system out there. There's a Linux version, a Mac version, a Windows version. Very easy to configure. And probably more than anything, the person that got me into coding has just told me to use it. So that's actually probably the honest reason why I use it. So go ahead and download whatever version you need for your computer, and then install it as normal. I have, command space. I already have it downloaded, so we're just going to use the version I already have. When you open it, it'll look a little bit something like this. Yours will look a little bit different. Mine's configured with GitLab because my company uses GitLab. So yours won't come with this automatically. Let's see. Then go to File. On my Mac, I'm hitting File in the upper left corner, and then Open. And then go ahead and create a folder and open that folder. So there we go. All right, so now you'll have a folder. Yours will be blank. Mine just has a couple of stuff in here because I'm going to be showing you guys some stuff later. And you'll see I already have like an R extension installed. So what you need with VS Code is you need to install extensions. So hit this blocky icon over here and then install Jupyter and Python. And then Pylance is just because my company uses Pylance. So Python. If you type in Python, it should be like the first result. It should be by Microsoft. And it should have like 4.5 stars and like 33 million downloads by the time I did this. And then you want to use a Jupyter extension right after that. So you'll type in Jupyter. And you'll want to use the one by Microsoft again. Jupyter is basically, it'll let you like use Jupyter notebooks inside your VS Code. Most people you'll see will use Jupyter notebooks inside their code editor. I think just because I started off with using it in VS Code, I use it in VS Code, but really whatever works for you is best. Like sometimes I'll like be editing CSS and like HTML and JavaScript and stuff, so I'm not sure how well that works in Jupyter notebooks, so I think I just prefer to have everything in one environment. Okay, so after you download so now what we've done is we've installed Python through Anaconda, we've created an environment, and we've installed VS Code, and we've installed the required extensions. Now let's go ahead and create a quick and dirty like file. That way we can test and make sure everything's working as expected. So hit this new button over here, this new file button, and then type in test.ipynb. So test.ipynb. So an IPYNB is a Jupyter notebook. It's called an IPYNB because they used to be called IPython notebooks, and you don't want to change file extension names. You should get something similar to this, or it might tell you in the bottom left corner over here you don't have Jupyter extension installed. If that's the case, go ahead and click install, and then let it install it for you. I have multiple environments, so this is working in my base Anaconda environment. you want to go up to this upper right corner, click, and then go to the environment that you just created. So let us see. There's minimal DS. Okay, so it looks like in my case it's not listing it, so it should be let's see. Anaconda. Yeah, sometimes you have this issue. Minimal DS2. Okay. Okay, well, it's over here. So what happens is you have two different places to select your environment. The bottom left over here is for like regular Python code, and the upper right over here is for your Jupyter notebook. And sometimes they don't sync up properly, so VS Code's just not seeing it. So, oh, and one more thing to let you guys know: if you have a MacBook, then you might have a version of Python 2.7 installed in your computer. This is just for compatibility reasons with Mac OS. I think they're deprecating it with Big Sur, or they deprecated it with Big Sur, but I'm using Catalina right now. So I quit using Command Q. And then I opened it again. There we go. Connecting to kernel, minimal DS2. So what may happen is sometimes your VS Code won't recognize a new environment you've created. In that case, just quit it and restart it, and usually it'll load it on the next go. So I think, yep, as you'll see over here, minimal DS2 conda, it activated that environment. So now we're just going to do something simple. We're going to go import pandas as PD. And then we're going to do shift enter. And it'll probably take a while the first time to actually load. Because it also creates this VS Code folder with your settings where it says, okay, here's the environment you need to be using with this. Oh, and let me expand this for y'all. There we go. Okay, and cool. You'll see that it ran. So there we go. We've set up, we've downloaded Python. We've set up our Python environment using Anaconda, or Miniconda in our case, which the steps I'll have in the notepad that I have, which I'll have it detailed exactly what you need to do. We downloaded VS Code. We downloaded the extension, the Python and the Jupyter extension. And now we can move on to the next thing. Yeah, that's about it for that. So the next thing I do is I also code in R. Let's just save that. So R is a bit easier. Because it's not a general, it's a statistical computing language. It's not a general programming language, so it can be a bit easier to set up. Oh, cool. R for Mac OS developers. I should save that. Download R. So just go to the R website, download R, and I want to go to the United States because that's where I am. And Revolution Analytics in Dallas, Texas. Perfect. That's so I actually live in Dallas, Texas, so that's actually perfect for me. Download R for Mac OS. So go ahead and download the version of R you need for your needs. Should be easy enough. Then after you do that, download R Studio. So I actually had a question in one of my earlier videos. Why do I use R Studio instead of VS Code to edit my R code? And it's because so RStudio is the default setup for basically anyone who works in R. Almost everyone uses RStudio, and RStudio is a wonderful piece of software. And I actually wanted to get my VS Code to work the same way as R, but I couldn't get the R Markdown, which is basically this file format that lets you create these beautiful PDFs with R code with all your analysis and everything. I couldn't get that to work properly on VS Code, and I spent the better part of an hour or two trying to get it to work. And this is something that's a very important lesson I learned. If you can't get your environment to work, if you can't get a custom environment to work exactly as you want it to work, forget about it. Just do what everyone else does, because you'll be wasting time trying to configure something to work exactly the way you want it to, and it probably won't even save you that much time. So instead of using, if anyone knows how to get VS Code set up to work exactly like RStudio, please let me know. I'd prefer to use one development environment for everything. But it took so long to get it set up that I just forgot about it. Because time spent setting up your environment beyond a certain point isn't helpful. You need to build, you need to practice. So once you download RStudio, it'll basically look like this. And there's almost no configuring required with RStudio. Batteries included, everything works. Whenever you need to download new packages and stuff, you just use this package manager right over here. So RStudio, there's nothing to really talk about over there. The next thing I want to go over, people ask me, what do you use for your SQL development? And I use dbeaver. So dbeaver is an open source SQL database tool. And I find it works really well for everything I need. If you have a Windows computer and you're working in and you're using Microsoft SQL Server, then I highly recommend using SQL Server Management Studio. It's a great tool, works exactly as expected. But the thing about SQL is that, depending on what database you use, the tool you use will change, right? So I use dbeaver and it works with just about everything. So that's my SQL setup. Tableau and Excel. People poo-poo on Excel a lot and say that, real data analysts don't use Excel. I think that's complete BS. Real analysts use whatever tool works best for whatever they do. And Excel is a great tool. It does everything you need it to do. That being said, I don't use Power Query and Power Pivot. I've heard great stuff about them, and I might learn them in the future. It's not a priority for me because as I advance in my analytics career, everything is written in Python. So for example, like if I want to work with like big data, then I'm going to be using PySpark. If I want to like connect to if I want to like run machine learning models and stuff, it's all written in Python. So I think that Excel is great. And then if you have Power Query, it's a tremendous tool to have. But it's probably not something I'm going to be picking up anytime soon. I'd rather learn R personally for any statistical stuff I might have to use, especially because these days people are writing a lot of libraries to help people work in R and Python at the same time. So I highly recommend just learning R. In my opinion, Python first, R second, and then SQL first. Python second, R third, and I think a data analyst or a data scientist for sure should know all three of these things, and a data analyst should be working to know all three of these things. A data analyst should know SQL 100%, and then Python and R afterwards. All right, the next thing I want to tell you guys about is, remember how earlier I said I work in both GUIs and in command line? Well, one thing that I always do in GUI is Git. And Git is basically a way that you can manage your software. So basically, the basic structure behind it is that you put software on a website or on some server, right? And then every time you add a new feature, it creates kind of like a line of like a history basically. And then if someone wants to edit your software, they can fork it, meaning that they can like kind of like take it off to the side. And then start editing that and then merge that branch back into the master code. And Git is a tool that every data analyst will eventually have to know, or anyone that writes code has to learn it at some point in time. It's not integral to the beginning of your journey necessarily, but if you work on a large team, then you're going to have to learn it. So, for example, like at my company, we use GitLab, which, I mean, GitLab, GitHub, they're all basically the same thing. And you're going to have to learn Git. I had to learn Git in order to like, learn how to merge code properly and, deal with merge conflicts and all that stuff. So the way I manage all my Git is through GitHub Desktop. And basically when you download it, it'll automatically configure all of your Git stuff in the background for you. And it's super easy to use. You don't have to worry about command line at all. Because I was having so many problems getting like my command line stuff to work well with Git. So I highly recommend just using GitHub Desktop. It works with Git Labs as well. So I highly recommend this. But, if you're a developer already, then you probably know how to use command line really well with Git. And, you should just use whatever works for you. If you're brand new, this is what worked for me. And that's what should be, I should let you guys know about all of this. This is just what works for me. Atom is a great alternative to VSCode. You can totally use pip and like just base Python to do everything I just did. And then R, I think R, like, RStudio is basically like, that's the default way to do it. I think that's probably the best way to handle that. And then, another thing that I should definitely not sleep on is Notion. So Notion is the note-taking tool I use, and anything I share out there is going to be on Notion. So all of my I tried to like make my own website to share my own stuff, and it was too much work. So I just share everything on Notion. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that you guys check it out. It's great. And you can see I have like this Python hub over here where I have like different code snippets for different stuff I've done. So for example, like, one time I needed to like create a batch file. That way, Windows, this Python script I created to automate a certain process could like be automatically run on a Windows server that we had. So, I just have like notes and like different code snippets on how to do all this stuff. I needed to create isochrones at one point in time, so anything I learn, I put it in here. That way I don't have to remember it. I just have to remember I know it. and I put it in Notion in this very like nicely organized thing. So for example, setting up Conda environment, this is the thing I'm going to share with y'all. And it has all the instructions to do what we basically did at the beginning of the video. And one of my goals is to create a like massive data science hub with all of the knowledge I've accumulated nicely organized for you guys. So let me know if you guys are interested in that. That's something I'm really looking forward to creating in the future. And then after that, yeah, so that's basically my software setup. And that's the really important stuff. I'm going to go over just my hardware setup and stuff really quickly with y'all too. But before that, one thing I do want to share with y'all is there are a lot of books that I use in my this is the guy this guy asked for the tutorial, so that's why I'm making this. So shout out to you, Parth. There are a lot of great books if you're getting started in the analytics game, but by far the best one to start off is a book called Storytelling with Data. This book, at the end of the day, all data is storytelling. Or like all like analytics with data it's all about storytelling, and Storytelling with Data is a tremendous book to get you started on on your analytics journey. I highly recommend it. My Amazon affiliate link is in there. I have way more books I want to suggest too, but I don't want to flood y'all with Amazon affiliate links. So I'm probably gonna like release one here or there based on like what I think the video would most benefit from. So I love making this content for y'all, but obviously, like, if this could be a revenue generating exercise for me, I'll be 100% honest with y'all. That would, really make it easier for me to keep doing this for y'all for free. So Storytelling with Data, tremendous book. I highly recommend it. If you're going to read only one book about data, that's the book to read. And then just other software I actually use, and this is other hardware I use, and this is hardware like I swear by. I'm very much of the attitude, like, don't spend a ton of money on your setup. Only buy stuff that actually benefits you. So for example, like there's this MacBook I have. So I didn't buy this MacBook. This is like my company gave me this MacBook. I personally would buy a MacBook myself because I just love Mac OS, and I personally really like using it. But I wouldn't buy a 16-inch. I would buy like a 13-inch with like good enough specs. Don't worry too much about the specs of your laptop. You just need something that will run Python code. And quite honestly, if you're going to be running a bunch of like neural networks and stuff, you can always put it in the cloud. And also, I should note, I passed the Google TensorFlow certification exam using a 7-year-old MacBook. So even if you're going to be doing if you're just starting on your analytics journey, don't worry too much about your hardware. That's not really important. Two things I will say were worth investing in, though, was a Logitech MX Master 3, which is the mouse that I use right now. I was like, oh, why would I spend $100 on a mouse? 100% worth it. It's just an amazing mouse. It feels really good. It keeps my hand in a comfortable position. That way I don't develop any health problems in the future. And especially with Mac OS, it has like these shortcut buttons and stuff over here that make it very easy to do stuff. So you have the horizontal scroll bar over here, and you have this inertial scrolling wheel, which actually in a future video on web scraping, I'll show you why it's as useful as it is. And then you have this like extra button over here, which you can use in Mac OS to launch expose mode or like switch between desktops. So tremendously useful. I highly recommend it. A screen is a luxury purchase that I think pays dividends. I have this LG 35-inch 1440p monitor, and it's amazing. It makes my workflow so much better, and it's so nice. So I would say like a mouse and a screen, and depending on you, maybe a keyboard too. This is just a keyboard my company gave me. Are definitely worthwhile things to invest in. A laptop, less so. As long as it runs Python code well enough, that's all you need. Like the analytic stuff I do is not like super heavy duty, I'd say. But if you're running into bottlenecks in your performance and stuff, then yeah, maybe it's time to upgrade your laptop. So that is everything I have for you guys. My software, my books, my hardware. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. I try my best to respond to absolutely everyone. Share this with anyone else you think might really benefit from it. And yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter. I try and get back to as many people as I can. I have a lot of people reaching out to me, so if I don't respond to you immediately, feel free to send me a secondary message. And if you have any questions or any suggestions for future videos, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe. That lets me know that I should keep making these videos. Thank you and have a great day, everyone.